welcome to another day of the Kriegers. How exciting, another special guest today.
Hello guys.
I hope you're all well and you've had a wonderful day. Let's get on because we're getting very close to the end. Look. Oh, it's so exciting. Oh, I have got some other people listening today in school as well. They're all waving at you silently right now. Okay, so ready? Norman smiled and they both giggled. Where is she? Downstairs with Mrs. Noying and the mayor, thanks to you. But how did you know how to find me? Lucy asked. I figured the Walleb must run underneath most of the town, so when you disappeared I just kept looking under beds. And there you were, Norman explained, pointing to the huge mattress and pillows leaning up against the wall, revealing the giant hole leading into the Walleb. Lucy's heart suddenly leapt like a frog. Quickly, put it back, she cried. What? Norman gasped, as Lucy lunged past him and began remaking Ella's enormous pink bed, slamming the mattress back down, covering the Walleb in shadow. They'll all die if we let the sunlight keep pouring in like this. We need to cover up all the holes. We have to tell everyone in Whiffington. Norman frowned. What are you talking about? Who'll die? The Kriegers, cried Lucy. I know you probably think I'm crazy, but we can't just let them be destroyed. With a final heave, she pushed the mattress over the last slice of sunlight. Norman's mouth gaped open like a goldfish while Mr. Dunstan snapped his fingers. I know! If there's one person who can get the Whiffington folk to pay attention, then you're in luck. You're standing in his house. Lucy and Norman stared blankly back at Mr. Dunstan. The Mayor of Whiffington, he said. Ella's dad! Norman and Lucy cried. The three of them ran out of Ella's fluffy pink room and downstairs as fast as they could. Mayor Noying! Mayor Noying! They called as they burst into the living room. I have no idea how it got marshmallows stuck on it. I promise I didn't wear it, Mama, Ella was saying with a perfect smile as she handed her mother a rather tattered-looking wedding dress. All that matters is that we're back together, Mrs. Noying replied, throwing the dress aside and pulling Ella in for a hug. Sorry to interrupt, Lucy said from the doorway, but we need help. Ella, where's your dad? I'm very sorry, but he's had to leave, Mrs. Noying said calmly. Leave? But you've only just got back, blurted Norman. He said he had some work to attend to that couldn't wait, Mrs. Noying replied. Suddenly, Lucy heard the rumble of helicopters thundering in the skies outside and growing louder by the second. Not the normal sort of helicopter sound. This was the sound of huge, hefty, heavy helicopters, and lots of them. They all ran to the window and stared as a great shadow fell over the entire town. What the chickens, said Mr. Dunstan and Lucy at the same time. Well, you don't see that every day, muttered Mrs. Noying. A swarm of hundreds of grey military choppers filled the sky, flying closer together in formation, with the letters WAF stencilled on the side. Whiffington Air Force, cried Norman. The grown-ups were back and they meant business. What is that thing they're carrying, Dad? Asked Lucy, pointing to an enormous circular machine dangling underneath some of the helicopters on long metal wires and swaying this and that. That's a boring machine, Mr. Dunstan said. There you go, there's the machine. Can you all see? Doesn't look very boring. I'd say it looked pretty interesting, replied Norman, gazing at the metallic Goliath whizzing over the town. No, it's not a boring machine. It's a machine used for boring holes, Mr. Dunstan explained. They're used to dig deep tunnels in the ground like a big drill. The frog in Lucy's chest leapt again. She and Norman stared at one another. Why is a gigantic tunnel-digging machine being flown into Whiffington by the WAF? Norman gulped. Lucy already knew the answer. They're going to dig a hole into the Walleb and destroy the Kriegers, she cried. The image of thousands of helpless Krieger families cowering in the sun's rays flashed through her mind as she clenched her fists tightly. I need to stop that machine before it's too late. What? Why you? Said Norman. I was the one that found the Walleb, said Lucy. I was the one who worked out that sunlight can destroy it. That means that if the Kriegers die, it'll be my fault. I have to be the one to end this. She looked up at her father. I need to get to those helicopters, Dad. Mr. Dunstan looked back at his daughter, at the fierce determination in her eyes. She seemed to have grown up suddenly, and this time it wasn't anything to do with strange Woleb magic. "Right you are, Lucy Pops. Wait just a jiffy," he said, zipping up his grubby green coat as he disappeared out of Ella's front door. "Where's he gone?" Norman squeaked. But after a few seconds his question was answered by the growl of an engine and the deep hoot of a horn. Norman and Lucy sprinted outside where Mr. Dunstan was pulling up in his stinking, spluttering rubbish truck. "Quickly get in," he said, leaning over and opening the passenger door. "In that thing?" Norman asked. "Yeah. That okay?" asked Mr. Dunstan. "Awesome!" Norman cried, pushing past Lucy to jump in first. Lucy, Norman and Mr. Dunstan charged through the streets of Whiffington in the muckmobile. That's what Norman had decided to call it, trying to follow the helicopters overhead. They lurched round corners so fast that half the rubbish in the back spilled out onto the streets, leaving a wake of whiff on every street they sped down. "Sorry," Mr. Dunstan yelled out of his window. "I'm used to picking up rubbish, not dropping it off." "Where are they going?" Lucy shouted as they whizzed along. "Dunno, Lucy. Just don't take your eyes off them. There's a slight northwesterly wind, so taking that into account with their approximate heading, I'd say they were going..." Norman paused. "Where, Norman?" cried Lucy. "But that can't be right," he muttered. "I can't see them anymore," Mr. Dunstan yelled as the helicopters whizzed below a line of tall trees and then disappeared behind the houses of Whiffington, carrying the whopping great drilling machine out of sight. "Dad, I've got an idea. Turn left," Lucy cried. But they didn't go Mr. Dunstan didn't get the chance to finish his sentence as Lucy leapt over and yanked the massive steering wheel towards her. The muckmobile skidded round a corner, pulling into... There's the muckmobile. You see it, everyone? Pulling into Trampoline Avenue, Lucy exclaimed as she jumped out of the truck and onto the nearest trampoline. "We might be able to spot them." Norman and Mr. Dunstan followed the pavement beneath their feet, suddenly turning soft and bouncy. They all bounced along it, jumping as high as they could, trying to catch a glimpse of the helicopters and their machine. "Can you see them?" Lucy yelled with each bounce as their three heads bobbed up and down above the rooftops. When they came to the end of the street, they were completely exhausted. "Sorry, Lucy, we lost them," Mr. Dunstan said. I think Norman panted, not being able to get his words out. "What is it, Norman?" Lucy asked. He took a deep breath and gulped. "The helicopters." "Yes, I saw them." "Where?" "They were hovering directly over your house," Norman gasped. "You mean we've been chasing them all this time while they've been flying towards our house?" cried Mr. Dunstan. Of course, it makes perfect sense, Lucy realised. Our house was where I discovered the Woleb, and where sunlight first entered its shadowy tunnels. It's the perfect place to drill. It's where everything began. "It's where everything could end," said Norman. "I just hope we're not too late," Mr. Dunstan said as they bounced back into the muckmobile and raced towards their home. The closer they got, the more intense the noise became, like driving into the heart of a thunderstorm. The rumble of the helicopter's rotor blades set off car alarms, made glass windows rattle and tiles slip off rooftops, smashing on the ground below. As they pulled onto Clutter Avenue, Lucy saw the most unbelievable thing she'd ever seen, even more unbelievable than the Woleb. Through the dusty windscreen of the muckmobile, she could make out at least 100 WAF helicopters, hovering over her little house, circling like a tornado of hungry vultures. Beneath them hung the whopping great drilling machine, swinging around like a metallic shark and baring its teeth at the roof of the Dunstan home. The sight was enough to make Mr. Dunstan slam on the brakes, bringing the muckmobile to an abrupt halt. "How on earth are you ever going to stop that, Lucy?" said Norman. "Lucy?" he repeated, looking round, but there was no reply. The passenger door was open and Lucy's seat was empty. "Where's on!" Norman cried. Lucy wasn't wasting any time. She was sprinting as fast as she could towards the chaos, scrambling over car bonnets and stumbling through flower beds until she burst through her front gate and disappeared into the hallway. "Lucy, wait!" Mr. Dunstan cried out of the window, honking the horn of the rubbish truck before leaping out and racing towards his house. Suddenly, dozens of figures in dark uniforms flew down from the sky above and landed with a thud around him. Whiffington Air Force abseiling down from the choppers above. They formed a line across the street, forcing him to stop. "Sorry, sir, this is off limits now," the nearest officer said firmly. "But that's my house, and my daughter is in there," Mr. Dunstan said. "Screech! Crash! Jump!" An ear-shredding sound sliced through the air as the teeth of the gigantic drill pierced the top of Lucy's house. The officers ducked for cover as the chimney was obliterated, sending bricks raining down into the street and punching deep dents in Mr. Dunstan's truck. "Get back!" barked the WAF. "This street is now closed!" And with that, they clapped their hands on Mr. Dunstan's shoulders and marched him off to the far end of the street, away from the house, away from the choppers, away from Lucy. She was on her own. This is it. You're almost there. Only 3 chapters to go, and you'll know how it all ends. I already know what happens. If I wanted to, I could spoil it for you right now by saying that Lucy gets chopped to bits by the big drill and is never seen again. Or perhaps Lucy gets superpowers and melts the drill with laser beams from her eyeballs. Maybe both those would make better endings than what really happened. There's only one way to find out. Right. We're going to have to stop there for today. So we're going to start chapter 28 tomorrow, The Whopping Great Drilling Machine. Hope you've had a wonderful day, everyone. Continue sending me all that fantastic work. I'm really enjoying reading it. Enjoy the sunshine and stay safe. Bye-bye.